All right, welcome to this next segment here of this series of talking about my biggest mistakes. It's something that is not a lot of fun sometimes for me to talk about, but it's also kind of funny maybe for other people to look at it and say, okay, well, if this guy was such an idiot, made all these mistakes and still had some success, then I can do the same thing. And hopefully you'll be able to learn from some of these mistakes. So this is actually the sixth mistake that I want to talk about in this series. And what I want to discuss today is probably the biggest mistake that I've made throughout my business is that I have not always stayed in recruitment mode. Okay, now let me explain this a little bit more. Okay, so what often happens is that somebody gets started in the business and they get all excited and they have a lot of energy, and what they'll do is they'll actually end up maybe finding 3 or 4 people that join their team. They're super excited, they got 3 or 4 people that join their team. And then what they do is they start to become this manager of these 3, 4, 5 people, okay? Now, what's interesting with this is that a lot of people who actually join our industry are looking for a way to get away from their managers, get away from a boss. They want to work for themselves, right? And what they end up doing is joining this business because they want to just be their own boss, right? But what we do is when we build our team, it's like, oh, well, just because I introduce them to the business, I must know a lot more than they do. And so you start to manage these people as if you're their boss, okay? Which is not why they joined the business in the first place many times, right? Hey, you can have a lot of fun, you can have teamwork and so on, but why would you manage these people? What ends up happening is you manage these people and they're like, well, now they're telling me what to do and all this stuff. It's not really what I want, so they maybe don't have as much fun and they don't get the results. And suddenly, one of them quits, so you have 3 people left to manage. Okay, you'll keep on managing these people, kind of telling them what to do, checking in with them all the time, and so on, right? And what will happen then is that you will start to go from kind of being first in recruitment mode to then to the management phase. And then now you're going to start to blame everything. You'll be like, well, this business doesn't work. I've been at it now for a few weeks. And yes, I signed up a couple of people, but now everybody's quitting and all this stuff, right? And you're going to get into this blame phase. And when you're pointing the finger at somebody else, right? Check this out. You're pointing the finger at somebody else. That means that depends a little bit how you hold your fingers and so on. But that if one finger is pointing at someone else, how many fingers are pointing at you? Okay? It's often you are the issue when you're blaming other people, okay? So you've got to take a good look in the mirror. And it's not always easy to do that, right? It's not always easy to just look in the mirror and say, oh, wait a second, who's responsible for my success? You are 100% responsible for your success, okay? I never, ever take responsibilities for people's success in my business because I can't say, oh, well, I coached them to have success in the business. Well, then I also have to take 100% responsibility for all the people that quit and failed. And I'm not willing to do that because there's way more people that quit and fail than there are people that actually have success in the business, right? And so, always take 100% responsibility for your own success, absolutely, but never take any responsibility for other people's success. But the only way to have success in the business is to help other people have success. So it's kind of a catch-22 here, right? But after the blame phase, after you start blaming everybody, that's when you phase out and that's when you quit as well. Okay, so you want to stay away, obviously, from quitting. You want to stay away from blaming other people. And you really want to stay away from management phase until you have a team of, let's say, 5,000, 10,000 people. Then maybe you would like to start managing a little bit. But like I said, nobody wants to be managed, so don't do that either. Okay. And a big mistake that I made is over and over and over again, I would start to kind of get into this management phase. Luckily enough, I never really went into blame phase and then I never phased out, right? But I would get into this management phase where I'd stop recruiting. And what would happen then is that it was so difficult when I realized that, okay, a couple of teams quit. I now needed to replace those teams with other people, but I hadn't really been recruiting for a few months, or maybe sometimes I hadn't really sponsored anybody into the business for an entire year. And that was really, really tough to get things going again into recruitment mode. Actually, a lot of times I feel like it's tough when you take like a weekend off. You take like 2 days off in the weekend, and then Monday you try to get back into recruitment mode. And what will happen a lot of times is that you're not back in it yet. And Tuesday you start to kind of warm up, and by Wednesday you're full back in swing of things, and now things are going well. But then you just go, okay, well, by the time Friday comes along, you kind of stop recruiting again for the weekend, and then you got to get going again and so on. So it's a lot easier to stay consistent and keep on recruiting all the time, okay? And what would happen here sometimes is that I would actually not really sponsor anybody good into my business for like an entire year, okay? And some of you, I know you come into business and you're like, oh my God, I haven't sponsored anyone in 3 days, okay? And I would have a long period of time when nothing would happen because I wasn't really in that phase. I just lost that energy, lost that touch sometimes. And it's really tough to get back into that mode. So it's so much easier just to stay in recruitment mode all the time. So, and what I mean by that as well is that if you are in recruitment mode, you know how to get people started. You're like down in the trenches and you're actually able to coach and teach other people based on your experiences, not what you did like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, okay? Because things have changed so much. It's like, if I talk about the days when you know, all we really did was face-to-face meetings, and hotel meetings, I mean, the people that have built the majority of their business on social media would be like, well, none of that relates to me, right? So I can't coach them about that. I have to be able to also recruit using social media. You know, before we used to focus a lot on Facebook. Now a lot of people are having huge success on Instagram. I have to be up and running with Instagram to understand how can you actually get a customer on there? How can you get a new business partner on there? If I haven't done it myself, how can I teach other people to do the same thing, right? And that's one of the things that I do love doing is testing new things and seeing how can we tweak this a little bit and make this better to make it a little bit easier to recruit on this and this and this, right? And so whatever you do, always stay in recruitment mode. Some of the best people that I know in the business, what they do is they're constantly recruiting, like all the time. You know, every day they're looking to get at least 3 new contacts. Every day when they're out and about at a restaurant, you know, and the waiter is really nice, they'll prospect that person. And if you're in that mode all the time, it's so much easier. Okay, if you get out of it, it will take you, you know, days or weeks or months or even years sometimes to get back into it, and it's really tough. Okay, so it's so much easier to teach your team from experience and what's working for you, and really kind of get them motivated and inspired because of the actions that you're taking. Okay, you've got to lead from the front and showing the way, not kind of just telling people what to do all the time and so on, like you're in management mode. Okay, so that's a huge tip I have for you. I would have probably had success. What took me maybe 10 years to build up, I would have probably built up in about 3 or 4 years if I would have stayed every single day in recruitment mode, which I wasn't always, right? And so I hope you don't make that same mistake and go out there and have a lot of fun with this and just make it fun. Every day is like a fun game of connecting to people, making new friends and so on. Not always to recruit them into your business, but always making new friends. And when you're developing those relationships with people, that's when things really start to go in a right way, right? You're definitely going to grow your business. And I will talk a little bit more about follow-up because that's all parts to do with recruitment in a episode very soon here. But another thing with recruitment that's also really important to understand is that a 3-way call with your organization is still recruiting. You're still recruiting a new person. It's just maybe not for your front line, right? Maybe not for you personally, but you're still recruiting. So going out there with somebody in your organization, walking and talking into like businesses, into salons, going to a networking event and so on, that's still being in the trenches, even if you're showing somebody else how to do it, okay? So you don't always have to just constantly be building things for yourself, but as long as you're out there showing your team how it's done, right? That's the key to a lot of this as well. So hope you have a lot of fun doing that. I will see you here back soon. Thank you so much for listening and share this with anybody that you find useful.